Ace Podcast.
Hey everyone, this amazing ESO Network show is brought to you by our fine sponsor, Amazon.com. Please remember to shop Amazon for all your geeky needs, no matter what time of the year it is. All you need to do is go to esopodcast.com/ESO Amazon, or click on the Amazon banner on the ESO Network webpage to go to our e-store. It's the best way to shop and the best way to support this program, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Okay, that's enough of me babbling for now. Now on with your regular scheduled show.
Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations. You have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
I'm Chris Farrell from the official GonnaGeek.com podcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual. Check out all the other geeky podcasts over at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready, because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
On our latest episode, Josh Pederson and I share our thoughts on the winners and losers of the summer box office season. We also discuss the future of the Marvel comic book franchise after the fall of the Secret Empire. Plus another hit song from Plazma Z, and Dillon Maness from the Punched Out podcast stops by to talk the future for Jon Jones. And can Bellator ever become a true rival for the UFC? It's another string of podcasting blockbuster hits and misses we have for you today as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse.
Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.
And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate being part of the broadcast here today. And as always, my good friend, well, the main cog in the full machinery known as Humannequin Media is here and back again. It is the chief among all chiefs at Humannequin Media. It's Josh Pederson. What's going on, my friend?
Not much, dude. I've been playing video games, been editing podcasts, been doing all kinds of fun stuff.
And such is the life of Josh Pederson.
Oh yeah, what an exciting life it is too. I'm noticing that I've spent more time in front of my computer than I do anywhere else. So
when you finally read the book, as far as Ready Player One, as we've talked about off camera, you'll understand how certain individuals in the story might relate a lot to that. So we'll just leave it there. But definitely looking forward to that movie. By the way, I heard there's some changes that are going on. I'm not exactly hunky dory with, but it's always creative licensing in Hollywood. But I'm just hoping it'll turn out well. But moving on to a little bit something different. Then this is once again the PCC Multiverse. I'll tell you what, it's going to be a great episode here today. We're going to be talking the winners and losers this summer at the box office. As far as the summer movie season has now come to a close, and I'll tell you what, it didn't come to a great close, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. We also got some great things to talk about and some things that'll look good towards the the movie industry in the future in regards to some of the things that really stuck out to us in the summer movie season. Plus, we'll also be talking to Dillon Maness of the Punched Out podcast. We truly appreciate him joining us today on this episode, and he'll be talking about Bellator and all the great things going on in the MMA world. And can Bellator compete as a high-level competitor to the UFC? We'll share our thoughts on that as well. And of course, we'll also talk a little bit more about the final chapter in Secret Empire. How did it close out? We're going to share some spoilers there that, well, they're not too much spoilers if you're actually just, blasting it all over Times Square like they did. But we'll talk a little bit more about that and the future for Marvel coming off the Secret Empire franchise. So a lot of great things looking forward to, indeed, including another great song from Plasma Z. But I tell you what, Josh, it is time first. I want to delve into some of the most positive aspects of the summer movie season. But first, what is coming up from your great channel known as Humannequin Media?
Just the usual. We have a new Super BS Gamescast. You can tune in Tuesday for the Podcast Radio Network show. There'll be some new Topicocalypse up next week, as well as we're going to be recording next Saturday. We're recording New What About This? So there's all kinds of things in the pipeline. You can check out a couple of reviews going up on the Pop Culture website. A lot of stuff. Just follow the Facebook page. I honestly can't remember most of what I'm doing here.
But as well, there's also something coming up from our good friend as far as Charles and also the great people at Inside Sports. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. I know you guys have probably seen a lot of Inside Sports. We talked about it, and we put a couple things up. We're actually starting Inside Sports from episode 1, so you can tune in every week for football talk, basketball talk, fantasy football, UFC. They're going to start diving into hockey soon. We're working out all the production details right now, but you can catch the first episode. It'll be up Friday sometime, and then so any support there would be awesome.
And it definitely did. And don't forget Attack. I want to say this again. Attack of the Humannequins. That's coming up 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network. Well, it comes out a day before the #1 show 6 months in a row on the Podcast Radio Network. That is the Pop Culture Cosmos show. We truly appreciate you watching and listening to all those shows when they're recorded and also when they play. And don't forget, they're also available for download and streaming as well. Like I said, it's going to be a great episode indeed. But Josh, it is time to delve into the winners and losers of the summer box office. So I ask you, we're going to start off with the winners and start everything on a high note, on a good, positive note, and get that positive mental frame, that frame of mind, which has that almost like nirvana, zen-like state with some good vibes. And I ask you, Josh, what is your first choice as the big winner of the summer movie season?
Talk about a high note. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. You're wrong, Gerald. That is my first summer winner.
Right off the bat, that's his big winner.
Yeah, I actually bought it on Blu-ray and I watched it and I loved it the second time.
Are you feeling well?
What's that?
Are you feeling well?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like I own one of the best movies I've ever seen. But anyways, on to my next two picks here. Don't make that face, Gerald. Baby Driver and Logan Lucky. I feel like those were the two sleeper hits of the summer to me. And I know Logan Lucky's still not doing so hot at the box office, but I thoroughly enjoyed these two movies. Didn't know what to expect going into them, and they kind of surprised me. I kind of see them building up a following like the Boondock Saints did, or Super Troopers that come out on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, and people will watch them and realize, these are pretty good movies. So those are my winners. I of course, I liked the Marvel films and all that good stuff that are coming out, but I feel like I want to talk about movies that actually deserve to be watched as far as like they have that underdog status. So I thought I'd push him a little bit.
Especially Daniel Craig's performance and Logan Lucky. I think people need to remind themselves of it when it comes to Oscar time, because I think that performance, quite honestly, no matter how lackluster the movie performed, and it didn't bomb by any stretch of the imagination, but it also didn't perform at the level I think a lot of people were hoping to.
I don't think it was marketed very well.
I agree with you on that.
I only saw 2 or 3 trailers for it and before it even came out, but
most of it was internet marketing that I saw.
Right. And but it was like there's a lot of big names in that movie that I had no idea. You got like Channing Tatum and Katie Holmes and
Adam Driver.
Seth MacFarlane was in the movie. I had no idea, and then finally, because he talks in a British accent, then it finally hit me, and I'm like, ah. But those are my.
And then Daniel Craig, who has a British accent, decides to ditch it for this role, and actually his character really jumped off the page at every time I was able to see his performance.
Well, even the characters that were kind of foils to his characters, like his 2 brothers, like even the scenes that he wasn't in, you still appreciated him for because of the interactions that his brothers were going through were prompted because of his character. So it's very clever writing, very clever the way they weaved it all together. Yeah, it's one of those movies that you really, I can't do it justice by talking about it. You just got to go out and watch it.
Well, definitely, those are some good choices indeed. Now, you mentioned those 3 off the bat, but is there any other films that you thought was a big hit this summer box office movie season?
Like I said, like I saw the superhero flicks like Wonder Woman, Guardians of the Galaxy. Really like those movies, but I didn't feel that people are gonna like those regardless of what how I feel about them. But Spider-Man was really good. I really did want to talk about Dunkirk though, just because it was a genuinely good movie. It's one of those movies. It's not just a movie. It's an experience. It's like something you really have to go to the theaters to see to really appreciate what the movie is.
Well, that's actually the first movie that I had thought of as far as the big winner this summer box office movie season. It is Dunkirk. I think it is just I think it's just another feather in the cap for Christopher Nolan and proves his worth as one of the top-notch directors in Hollywood today. And it was a performance. See, the best thing about Dunkirk is that reliant on performances per se, as far as an actor having to carry or an actress having to carry through themselves through a movie, and as far as the audience is concerned, through a lot of writing and a lot of dialogue and things of that nature. It was basically categorized by Nolan's direction and vision through the film, and him guiding the audience through each chapter and through each time segment of the actual conflict at Dunkirk and all the situations surrounding it and the help and the things of that nature and the rescue and all that. I don't know if it's his best overall movie, but I do think without a doubt it is his best directorial performance. And the reason why I say it is because so much was relying on a cinematic concept as opposed to a writing, as opposed to a dialogue, as opposed to one actor or 2 actors or 3 actors trying to carry the weight of the story. That seems to resonate more with the audience in this case, and just the vision and the imagery that was used, I think, propelled that film to absolute greatness. And that's why the film actually has performed so well at the box office, not only in the month of July, but it is probably one of the top, if not the top, box office film overall in the month of August as well. And we'll get to a little bit more of that a little bit later, but it definitely performed well above beyond expectations, and obviously we as the audience was better for it as well. And I also think, along with Daniel Craig's performance in Logan Lucky, that movie, along with my next choice, will probably be thought of at the end of the year when it comes down to looking towards the Oscar season and possible Oscar nominations. Definitely Dunkirk will be something that to be made aware of during that time, and as far as being pushed as far as a movie that might garner some real good awards indeed. And there's also as well Wonder Woman. You talked briefly about it, but Wonder Woman, I think that has to be a categorical success for the folks at Warner Brothers and DC. It has basically turned around everybody's thoughts and imprints and what they had perceived the DC extended universe should be and was at the time, coming off the disasters known as Suicide Squad and BVS, Batman versus Superman. Those two films were just awful beyond all description, and to come out with something so good like Wonder Woman that did so well at the box office definitely was great to see. And now people are actually looking forward to Justice League and seeing more films down in the future, as far as what we talked about with that ever extending list of films that they just keep adding on from the DC network. As far as whether they're going to end up on the screen or not, that's anyone else's guess, but still it's a lot of it's because of the renewed enthusiasm people have for the DC universe, and that's all because of Wonder Woman and how solid the film was. You and I both liked it. As far as certain, maybe I liked it a little bit more than you did, but it was still both to us a solid experience and something that sets the DC universe forward even more coming in the future. So especially there's a Wonder Woman 2 coming up and all that. So it definitely looks to, that's probably one main reason why I thought Wonder Woman was such a big success this box office season. And last but not least was another superhero movie. I know superhero movies seem to be the thing this summer, but Spider-Man Homecoming was, something that definitely brought a renewed sense of enthusiasm for Sony. Now, the ultimate dollar per dollar, as far as what it ultimately will end up getting worldwide, may not be substantially much more than what the Amazing Spider-Mans were doing and then what the previous Spider-Mans were doing before that. But that's not the point. The point is that Spider-Man Homecoming, as far as it was very well received by critics, very well received by fans, and it seems to have garnered an renewed interest from the aspect of how Spider-Man fits in that Marvel Cinematic Universe for Marvel and Disney. So definitely some great things that Spider-Man Homecoming did. Like I said, I thought it was a very, very strong movie. I gave it a very high rating here and you can read my review on the popculturecosmos.wordpress.com site. So definitely some great thoughts there as far as how I feel on Spider-Man Homecoming and how well it did the box office. And I think a lot has to be attributed to the good feelings from back the seeds were planted at Captain America Civil War, and look what came to fruition. So that ultimate investment that Sony made on allowing Spider-Man into that part of the universe has paid off. Like you and I said before on previous podcasts, we're just hoping Sony's not stupid enough to pull Spider-Man out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe too soon and say, okay, thanks for helping us out. We got to go now. And hopefully they will stay within the Marvel realm for at least some time longer with Spider-Man, because I think this really is a good version of Spider-Man. I really think it speaks a lot as far as setting up for the future going forward. So your thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming?
Just to piggyback on what you said, if Sony decides to pull out at any point or decide to do things on their own, like, it not only messes up Marvel's movie plan, but it also is going to ruin any goodwill that the fans were willing to give them over Spider-Man. So it will literally cause not just the character, but the entire MCU to kind of shatter a little bit.
It does, and because now Spider-Man has become this integral part of the MCU, and you must now have him be a part of that process, at least through Avengers 4, and hopefully going forward even more than that, because I think it's in both Disney and Sony's best interest to keep that relationship with at least Spider-Man as the point man or as the point individual for this process, with the Spider-Man universe being separated from the Marvel universe As long as you have Spider-Man interacting with both universes, I think that's okay, and I think that will help audiences better understand both products going forward and maybe relieve some of that superhero fatigue you and I always talk about with all these superhero movies taking place. What are your thoughts on the box office with the summer movie season? What are your big hit choices that we'd love to hear from you on what they might be? There's a lot of great movies that came out this summer, and we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on them. Please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, and Humannequin Media on Facebook and Twitter as well. We've got a lot of great stuff going forward. Our losers are coming up next as far as it's concerned. But first, we got another great song from Plazma Z, that music that you can hear a lot on his SoundCloud account. That's Plazma Z. Got to check out all of his great stuff there. This is a Plazma Z style remix of Don't Wanna Know by Maroon 5, and it's right here on the PCC Multiverse.
I don't wanna know, who's taking you home, I'm loving you so. The way I used to love you, no, I don't wanna know, who's taking you home, I'm loving you so. The way I used to love you, oh, I don't wanna know, wasted. And the more I drink, the more I think about you. No, I can't take it. Baby, every place I go reminds me of you. Do you think of me, what we used to be? Is it better now that I'm not around? I feel alright to say that you bring up your name. Are you happy now? Are you happy now? I don't wanna know, who's taking you home, I'm loving you so. The way I used to love you, no, I don't wanna know, who's taking you home, I'm loving you so. The way I used to love you, oh, I don't wanna know. The way I used to love you, no, I don't wanna know, who's taking you home, I'm loving you so. The way I used to love you, oh, I don't wanna know. And every time I go out, yeah, I hear it from this one, hear it from that one, that you got someone new, yeah. I see but don't believe it, even in my head, still in my bed, maybe I'm just a fool. Do you think of me, what we used to be? What we used to be? The way I used to love you, no, I don't wanna know, who's taking you home, I'm loving you so. The way I used to love you, oh, I don't wanna know, wasted. And the more I drink, the more I think about you. And I know I can't take it. Do you think that I should just go on without you? Are you happy now? Are you happy now that I'm not around? Are you happy now? Is it better now? Are you happy now? Are you happy now? Are you happy now that I'm not around? Are you happy now?
Hey, this is Chad from Ghost Toasters, and you're listening to Pop Culture Cosmos Podcast.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Cornflake.
So we host the Flopcast.
We cover nerd and geek subjects of all types, but this is sort of a sillier, goofier side of geekdom, I'd say.
We love to talk about music, especially funny music.
We talk about comic books, conventions.
Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh yeah. I'd say if you're going to put the Flopcast in Brady Bunch terms, we're like the cousin Oliver of podcasting. And we do a ridiculous new Flopcast episode every week.
What is wrong with us?
We really have nothing else to do. We're part of the Earth Station 1 podcast network.
And you can find us at flopcast.net.
And we're back with the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. And if you, for some reason, cannot hear our show, the PCC Multiverse, or our other show, the Pop Culture Cosmos show on the Podcast Radio Network, that is no problem at all, because we got a ton of different options where you can download and stream the show at any point in time. That's going to be on iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, the Ace Podcast Network, Overcast.fm, Player.fm, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Podcast.com, Mixcloud, the ESO Network, the Tangentbound Network, the Gonna Geek Network, Cast Crunch, Social Podcasts, and popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. And to our friends at the ESO Network, have truly is just a safe and wonderful time out at Dragon Con in Georgia out there. So we just truly appreciate everything you do for us at the ESO Network as well. So, and I'll tell you what, if you get a chance to listen or download and stream those options, you get bonus stuff as well. Like could be an extra podcast from this guy at Humannequin Media, all of his good stuff. Could be an extra Game Source, could be a Gamercast, could be something from Rob McCallum Films, could be something from the Wine Women of Words. You never know what we add on as an extra, but as a bonus. We try very hard to put it there. In fact, if you go back to our last episode on the Pop Culture Cosmos show, we added 3 extra podcasts. That's right, 3 extra podcasts just for listening. So, Josh, we named off some of the winners at the summer box office this season, and what a great season it was for the most part for May, June, and July. So we've got some time to share some thoughts on what some of the duds, the busts, the losers, the movies and things that in the movie industry that didn't go so well as planned as far as the summer box office movie season. So I will hand it over to you. What are your choices for some of the worst performing movies, the losers of this summer box office season?
Okay, so my first one was Alien Covenant. I was super stoked about this movie at first because like I mentioned before, I'm probably one of the few people on the planet who did enjoy Prometheus and where the series was headed after that. And not only did Alien Covenant not deliver on that, they went back to the same old formula and then ended on a very frustrating cliffhanger that people were and critics alike were so upset with that it actually made it so they didn't want to make another. They have to rethink the future of the Alien franchise.
I remember it making you very angry when we talked about it.
You made me angry?
No, I remember it making you angry.
Oh yeah. I was. You can read my review on our Pop Culture Cosmos website, but they fan service too much and they just went completely backwards. And if I wanted to watch aliens chase people around a spaceship, I would just watch the original quadrilogy or whatever. They started treading new grounds with Prometheus, and then they just bulldozed that story that they set up with cheap cutscenes and a few new aliens and on-screen blood gags and stuff. So it really was it upset me. Like, I'm a huge Alien fan, and now I don't even want to watch it anymore. So
he bypassed Blade Runner 2049 to direct it, and instead he did this movie instead.
Right. So probably not the best decision on his part. So we'll see. I know he's got this whole thing planned out. Now it's just a matter of convincing Fox to let him shoot this movie. But hey, we'll we'll see if he can redeem himself, but I'm doubting it right now.
Good luck on that one.
Yeah. My second one is Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales. For a movie that was in production for like 6 years, it was not worth it to me. It was not worth the wait. It was not worth the continued admiration of the pirate series, and it took characters that we've been following, we've come to love, and they just turned them into cannon fodder so we could keep watching Johnny Depp make a fool of himself. And it was not really a movie as much as it was just a Johnny Depp freak show.
And this comes off after the last movie in the series, which was not really that well thought of as well, correct?
Correct. Like, this movie was complete fan service. That's all it really offered. I don't know anyone that walked out of it saying, "Oh, that was a really good movie." I was hoping for a lot more because, I kind of did enjoy, I do enjoy the first three. So it was definitely a bummer. And I know it cost a lot of time and money, and there's a lot of stuff that went into it, and it just did not come out. I think
But what the worst part is, it still did $700 million in international box office, and it it did $800 million worldwide. So that I don't understand it. I don't get it. And same thing that you throw the Transformers in there. That's almost like the same thing, correct?
Right, and that's the bummer about it, is the fact that Disney is going to continue to beat it to death and not give it the proper story that I think people want out of it, because people are just going to. I know. Jack Sparrow does really well overseas with foreign audiences, so that's a big contributing factor. But as long as the movie sucks and it continues to sell really well, I think we're gonna have Disney's never going to put the time into it that could, because there's still some life in there. There's still I'm sure there's still some really good stories to tell if they would just be willing to tell them instead of creating. We're too obsessed with spectacle, man. I think that's why we're so into like superhero franchises now. We don't really care about stories as much as we do seeing spectacle happen. Oof. But yeah, so
tell us how you really feel.
I could go on about this, but okay, on to my last one. This movie is just a huge disappointment to me, and it was The Dark Tower. I was expecting so much, loved the books, and there's so much material to tell, and all they really had to do was make a script based on the gunslinger. And they messed it up. They took a complicated story and made it so complicated that you not only have to go running to the Advil bottle after you watch it, but it just makes you not even want to give it another chance. And that's kind of a bummer, especially with all these, new Stephen King properties coming out. I think they could have tied it all together rather nicely had they put the time and effort into actually making it something good.
And that's really hard to do in a movie that was shortened to 90 minutes, correct?
Right, and that's another thing. Like, these studios are so afraid of taking a chance on these properties that they're looking for shortcuts. Like they're like, okay, so the fans want this, but let's find out the cheapest way to give it to them, and it just ends up ruining all goodwill the fans are willing to give it, and it just makes it so we're basically been anticipating a crappy movie. I'd rather have it be expensive and good or not have it at all.
I don't blame you a bit, because Dark Tower obviously missed the mark to expectations from both, I guess, Stephen King fans, the regular public at large, and then also as well the critical reception was very, very mixed, and actually trended towards the negative side. And it just was very disappointing to see the performance of the film as well. And it should have been, by all accounts, far and away the biggest movie of August, and it ended up being just another dud in a sea of duds. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, definitely some really, really disappointing stuff there as far as what you were saying, and definitely some outstanding choices indeed. My losers, I'm going to start off with one that both you and I were arguing over as far as which one of us would put it on our list, and that was The Mummy. I know we had talked about The Mummy being part of this grand vision Universal has in creating a monster movie universe of their own and having everything connected, and everything was going to be awesome as far as Tom Cruise, and also as well Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde being involved as far as from now and then, sprinkle them in as far as their movies are concerned, and obviously expanding it with Frankenstein. And they talked about so many different monster movies being a part of this. And right out of the gate, The Mummy just stunk. I saw it in advanced screening and just really thought that this movie was going to tank right off the bat. I had such high hopes for it as far as leading this new Universal movie franchise, and unfortunately, it all but petered it out. I don't know what the status of it is now, if it's actually still in play, but obviously the performance of The Mummy has a lot to do with why it may now be in jeopardy, just like we were talking about as far as the Alien franchise is concerned. The Universal Studios movie monster franchise may be in jeopardy going forward as well, because this movie just reeked. Tom Cruise just running, which you've seen him in many movies before, trying to give you his arrogant attitude. We've seen that before on quite a few occasions as well, and just really didn't do anything to endear himself, and his performance was probably the key reason why the movie didn't click. And that's a shame, because he usually will bring some type of character that we can relate to, and usually does a formidable job as far as in that leading role, and he just didn't bring it this time with The Mummy. And unfortunately, there was nothing else surrounding The Mummy that took place that made the movie any more interesting. So definitely a low point indeed. Number 2, I guess I'm going to have to say it. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, one of the most disappointing movies of the season.
Okay, go ahead.
He's trying to interrupt me there and say, Gerald, you're wrong. But it is definitely one of the most disappointing movies of the season. I actually saw it upon your request, if I remember, as far as how good it was. And I came out of the movie going, this thing's a dead man. And unfortunately, it proved to be the case, because you might be the sole individual that might have purchased a copy of it on Blu-ray because of how poorly it did at the box office. The effects on it, as far as the green screening, was really bad, and the acting was subpar. The writing was horrible. We've never had a situation, you and I, in the years we've known each other now, and actually, I can say that it has been years now, where we've been so diametrically opposed on one subject. And I am happy. I first said, I want to pull all aside. I am happy for you as far as how much enjoyment you get out of that film. And I truly wish I can get that same enjoyment out of the film. But when I saw it, I can't. It's unfortunately did not appeal to me in any way, shape, or form. And I was really sad. I was more disappointed as far as the fact, because you think so highly of it, but unfortunately, a lot of the audience critical reception and box office numbers showed otherwise. And I'm hoping that what you've talked about earlier in the show about a movie clicking with audiences, because you and I both seen in the past with video and whatnot, where a movie that didn't get critically hailed or anything like that hits the video market and suddenly finds new life. So I'm hoping that for you, that King Arthur, Legend of the Sword will find a new life on home video, and that it will do well there, because it definitely did not do well at the box office, and definitely was not, in my opinion, one of the hallmarks of the summer movie season. But again, like I said, it's something I really wanted to enjoy, but unfortunately I just couldn't. And I'm hoping that it will actually perform very well in home video and actually vindicate itself. And hopefully I'll be able to eat crow going forward on it. So, any thoughts on that? Any comeback on that? So, like I said, it's not meant to be mean-spirited at all. Just like I said,
it's probably not going to get its sequel. So, at this point, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, I liked it. I went in wanting to be. It entertained me, so I wasn't. It's not by any stretch of the imagination like an award winner or anything, but it did. To me, it was entertaining, and I like that style of movie and editing. So, we'll just have to continue to agree to disagree on this one.
And I have a feeling we'll be disagreeing on this subject later in the year as well. but we won't say when and where. But I have a feeling it might be on an episode in the later in the future, but we won't talk about that right now. And then I'll be said again. I'll be told again that Gerald, you're wrong. But last but not least, as far as a downer on the summer box office season, I'm going to say it again for the last time, so we touch on this, and it's the month of August. Definitely just the best performer in the month of August was Annabelle 2, and that is, it's a good and bad. I was talking to Josh about it, that it performed as far as from a profitable standpoint, it is the most profitable film of the month. And when the worldwide numbers come in, it will make almost $300 million. It's well over 200 right now. So that being the case, you should be thinking, oh, that's great and whatnot, but it's actually the least performing of any of the Conjuring series. So it's a little bit of a trend going down, but I'd still make, more stuff in the Conjuring series, even though they're being sued, as what Josh told me. So it's still definitely something to be proud of, but that was the lone winner in a sea of just bad movies and bad performances. Hitman's Bodyguard might win 3 weeks in a row, but that's by default, and it still might not even turn a profit. So that should tell you more than anything. If a movie wins the box office weekend 3 weeks in a row and isn't turning a profit, then that's really something sad to think about as well. And The Dark Tower, also as well, Logan Lucky. There's so many different performances, so many different movies that really just underperformed at the box office this month, that really just left both Josh and I just flabbergasted at the way the movie industry kind of took the whole month off on quality films and promoting a good film, because we thought there was still an audience for it. Kids weren't back to school yet for the entire month. There was still plenty of time to make a great film and put a great film and a great movie experience there that could garner a lot of acclaim and a lot of income. You and I both saw it with Guardians of the Galaxy, the original one. That was an August film. So definitely there is money to be made in August, but it seemed like no one really, Annabelle 2 aside, nobody was really going after it as much as they should. So definitely some disappointing news indeed, is the entire month of August as one of our biggest losers of the summer box office movie season. I mean, Dunkirk was a movie that was released several weeks ago in the middle of July, and it still performed better than virtually all the other films that were released in August. And that's definitely a telling sign indeed. What are your thoughts on some of the big losers at the box office this summer? Would love to hear your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, and Humannequin Media on Facebook and Twitter as well. Again, we just truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast. Coming up next is a conversation I had with Dillon Maness of the Punched Out podcast, where we are talking about MMA and can Bellator be that ultimate competitor and compete on a high level with the UFC. We're going to talk about that and more MMA as the host of the Punched Out podcast, Dillon Maness, joins us right after the break. This is the PCC Multiverse.
Hey guys. Hi! Check out Rec Level 3. What's that? We're a gaming, geek, nerd culture fandom podcast. Ooh. Wow! And you can find us every Friday at 11:30 a.m. on reclevel3.com. Yay!
And we're back to the program. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there being part of the broadcast here today. I want to thank everybody, not only on a podcast radio network, but our entire lineup of downloading and streaming options for tuning in to us today. We truly appreciate it. And I just wanted to take some time out today to talk a little bit about some mixed martial arts. And who better to talk some mixed martial arts than one of the best mixed martial arts podcasts that's available on the internet today. It is the Punched Out podcast, now available on Apple Podcasts, Libsyn, Stitcher, and Google Play. He is the host of the Punched Out podcast. It's Dillon Maness. So great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me on, sir.
Jon Jones recently was reported as one of the pre-fight drug tests that he took before his last fight where he knocked out Daniel Cormier. He was tested positive for steroids. So I ask you, Dillon, with that news, it's not exactly entirely shocking, knowing his past history and whatnot. What is this going to do for the UFC as far as a top draw now being possibly out for up to 4 years? And secondly, what is it going to do for Jon Jones himself and his career? Is it essentially over?
Well, according to Dana, it really could be over. You have a young man that has all the talent to be the greatest fighter of all time, probably the greatest fighter we've ever seen compete, up there next to, in my opinion, just people that are considered some of the greatest of all time. And I think that he is potentially greater than every fighter that's ever graced the octagon. He's seemingly unbeatable. So when you have somebody like that who's so young and has started to mess up so early on in his career and given chance after chance after chance after chance and really just blowing away every shot and telling the media themselves that he's a changed man and that he'll never do this stuff again, and then doing it right back over again. I mean, I don't know how many more chances you can give a person.
Exactly. And, he's had issues with the law. He's had issues already with drug testing before in the past. And I heard the suspension, if it takes place, could be up to 4 years. And for a fighter like that, his window is very short. And even if he does get back in 4 years later, let's say hypothetically, it probably won't be the same Jon Jones that he was as he is now in his prime. So that's very disappointing news indeed. And obviously it also takes away from a potential Jon Jones-Brock Lesnar fight, which had been heavily rumored for taking place once Brock Lesnar got off his suspension sometime, most likely next year. So that puts that by the wayside as well. So I ask you, now that there's really a lot of question on who will take that next step in the UFC, if you can name me one fighter, male or female, that's going to take that next step and be that superstar that the Rouseys, the Jones, the McGregors, just going down the list of all those great drawing cards before, who do you think is going to be that next fighter that will take that next step in the UFC and become that big time drawing card?
Well, the most unfortunate thing is that we already have that one fighter, and it's a fighter that everybody can't stand. And it appalls me to hear people not love Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. He's probably the greatest champion of all time. Whether you want to argue that his weight class isn't strong enough, there's still nobody that wins as decisively as he does and over again. At the end of the day, we're still talking about fighting, and a fight can go either way, and this man continuously wins. But outside of that, I also like Max Holloway. He's a young kid, and he just does everything right.
Well, it seems to be predicated always within the boxing and MMA world that the heavier weight classes always seem to get the love and the shine and the spotlight. But like you said, with Demetrius Johnson, he does have the talent and the skill to be that top drawing card if the UFC promotes them correctly. And in the past, UFC was able to go ahead and go out of the norm and push that type of fighter, even if it wasn't something that they were interested initially in doing themselves. I remember Dana White saying he would never promote as far as women's fights and whatnot. And as soon as he got on the Ronda Rousey bandwagon, that took off like a meteor and like a rocket, which became the top drawing star for the UFC per se. So I hope he will get the love and the strong backing of the fans and at some point in time. And I hope it won't be a situation like, in wrestling, let's just say, the WWE's version of Roman Reigns, so to speak, where, the promotion's putting him on top and the fans aren't exactly willing to follow. So we'll hope for the best for that sense in Demetrius Johnson. But I also want to ask you, there's always been a competitor to the UFC once it started to gain a foothold with a worldwide audience. In the past, it was Pride. In the past, it's also been World Series of Fighting. Those two really, unfortunately, didn't materialize eventually as a top competitor. But Bellator, in the past few years, has become, I guess, in its own way, with Spike and whatnot, since UFC left Spike, has become a competitor to the UFC. But they've done it with some relative unknowns and also some individuals who have left UFC, whether it's because of a certain amount of losses or a certain amount of bad feelings in regards to contract disputes with UFC. So I ask you, Dillon, this is Dillon Maness of the Punched Out podcast. Do you think that at some point in time, Bellator can actually become a top flight competitor to the UFC and actually someone that even the casual fans can take seriously as a alternative to the UFC?
My opinion on that is Bellator has become a big competitor of the UFC. Will they ever reach that caliber? That is to be determined. I almost hope they do. Now the World Series of Fighting is Premier Fight League, so we have another competitor in there. They're promoting this new deal that they have, the richest tournament in MMA. That's a good deal. I don't think they're going to be a real factor. I think that Bellator is the only real factor. But the thing with Bellator is there's two spectrums to Bellator. There's young, unknown guys, old, late in their career guys. So when you have that, you gain some of what the UFC is losing, hardcore fan base from back in the day, the 90s. They get to watch some of their favorite fighters live out some of their dreams to get to fight the certain people that they want to fight. Example would be Frank Mir. I got to talk to Frank Mir, and he told me that he would do whatever it takes to fight Fedor. Now, that is before Fedor got knocked out his last fight, but he told me even if he had to leave the UFC, that he just wanted to fight Fedor before he retired. So Frank has left the UFC, has signed with Bellator. So I assume that that's what he is chasing, as is everybody that's going back and fighting later on in their career. I don't know what Chael accomplished. We saw Tito fight, but then you got Ryan Bader and Phil Davis who are still in some depth in their career. They got some time left, but a lot less time than probably Vanderlei or Tito's done, and Chael probably don't have much longer. Frank's probably got a couple fights, and if Fedor fights again, I guess he fights again. But just judging by his last performance, I wouldn't want to see that. But as far as them becoming a competitor, Liam McGeary, I like Liam McGeary, Linton Vassell, they have to rely on those guys. But what they were trying to do is put their eggs in that superstar blue chip wrestler basket, and it backfired on them with Aaron Pico. So
I remember that. Yeah, they definitely were trying to highlight them, and credit to them for doing so. It just, like you said, it just backfired on them and unfortunately put them back down a notch.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. These college wrestlers that they're recruiting is a super good thing, because the UFC aren't chasing these guys. And in my opinion, wrestling is probably the strongest base that you can have when you come into mixed martial arts. I mean, if you're getting hit, let's get this fight down to the ground. And on the ground, you just have to worry about your submission. So I like wrestling as probably one of the strongest suits that you can come into the mixed martial arts game with. So them picking up wrestlers, especially super high caliber wrestlers, is not a really bad idea. But they need some real superstar talent. MVP is a talent. He might be a bigger star than Eddie Alvarez. And really anybody that I've seen come out of Bellator. There's not a whole lot of superstar factor when you look at Bellator, but he's something special. And I think they need to hold on to him. But what we really got to think is, my last episode, I talked to John Fitch. John is the ringleader for getting the Ali Act passed in MMA. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ali Act. He informed me a lot, and then I did a lot more research. But essentially, that would equalize the playing field with other promotions. It would really equalize everything and take away such a dominant powerhouse.
Well, there's some great points indeed from Dillon Maness of the Punched Out podcast. I'm hoping for the best. I would love to see a situation where Bellator gets itself on equal footing with the UFC. I'm hoping that day will come. Maybe some champions that they currently have, like Brent Primus and Rafael Carvalho, will actually be able to take that next step and be able to be those drawing cards that Bellator sorely needs, and also Spike TV as well. So that's definitely something we can hope for with Bellator trying to become a bigger challenger to the UFC. I just want to tell you, Dillon, it's been a great pleasure having you on the show today. Any last thoughts on either the MMA scene or your podcast, and how people can get a hold of your podcast today on your awesome Punched Out podcast?
Well, they can get me on Facebook. That's my most active spot. I have a Twitter. I do not have an Instagram, but you can find us on Facebook, the Punched Out Podcast. Give us a like, shoot me a message. Just let me know what you think about the show. And you can get it on Google Play and Stitcher. I believe that's it right now, but I'd really appreciate everybody listening. Yes, Apple Podcasts.
And that's right. That is Dillon Maness of the Punched Out podcast. That's now available. Get it today. Listen to all the episodes. He's got a list of great fighters he's had the chance to speak to that's going to be available. You can catch it right now on Apple Podcasts, Libsyn, Stitcher, and Google Play. Dillon, it's been a great pleasure having you on the show. And I tell you what, I'm hoping you can come back on the show in the future to talk MMA anytime you like, and I'm hoping you will do that, and definitely looking forward to having you on the Pop Culture Cosmos at some point in the future.
I would absolutely love to continue to come on your show, and anytime you have MMA related questions, just shoot them at me, and I'd love to come on here and discuss things with you.
Awesome indeed. So that's Dillon Maness of the Punched Out podcast. We truly appreciate him being part of the PCC Multiverse. For the latest reviews and opinions on everything pop culture, head on over to our brand new site, www.popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. And we're back with the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast. And as we close this on out, there was some news this week. It was actually kind of a lighter week. Force Friday is on the day this airs, and that's awesome. As every year, people look forward to all the toys and what they can get and all the news they hear from Star Wars and whatnot. So that's great. But there was pretty a light week otherwise, with not really some telling news out there. But we wanted to go ahead into one news item primarily that kind of got people out there kind of stirring, because it was out there as far as the ending for Secret Empire. It's actually blasted all over Times Square in New York. So if there's anybody that doesn't want to hear any spoilers on it, sorry, I'm going to be telling some slight spoilers on what's going on how the Secret Empire ends. But first, Josh, I want to hear your words on Secret Empire and why it really never struck a chord with you as a comic book series.
It was a gamble, and it did not pay off. It was poorly executed. I think they were stupid for even making it, because what they did was take a lot of heroes that we know and love, and they pretty much made us hate them. And that, I've never hated so many heroes at the end of a comic book run in my life, and I think that is going to forever leave a stale taste in our mouths.
Yes, I was glad to see that finally the good Captain America was finally able to meet up against the evil Captain America, and he defeated the evil Captain America with Mjolnir's hammer. Still, I think it's just too little too late, and it's like trying to put out the fire after already it's burned down the barn, and it's just a little bit too late to deal with it. Now Marvel has to suffer the consequences and basically try and do damage control, and it's going to take a long time to rebuild the faith in the fan base, and for the fan base to regain faith in Marvel. So definitely some things to think about indeed, as Marvel has finally ended these Secret Empire, and then it's ended on a high note as far as Captain America saving the day, but as far as the future for him and for Marvel, it may have been a case of too little, too late indeed. What are your thoughts on the Secret Empire series now that it has finally concluded? Yes, I know there's going to be an epilogue of some type, but basically, for all intents and purposes, it has ended with Captain America, the good one, over the Captain America, the bad one. Share your thoughts on what Secret Empire meant to you. Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Humannequin Media, Game Source, and Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook and Twitter as well. So before we head on out, Josh, please let us know what's going on with your great network known as Humannequin Media.
Yeah, just the same stuff as always, man. The Tuesday night show, Podcast Radio Network. We have Inside Sports starting from episode 1, starting Friday, either Friday or Saturday. You'll have new Topicocalypse. You can watch or listen to the other ones right now. There's 2 of the parts from episode 4 up. Yeah, and a new Super BS on Monday. So stay tuned, and you can, I'm sure I'll do other stuff. You just got to follow us on Facebook, check the social media pages. And yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's awesome indeed. So definitely look out for that, including Attack of the Humannequins, every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Podcast Radio Network. And also look for our great show, the Pop Culture Cosmos Show. It's the #1 show 6 months in a row on the Podcast Radio Network and also on over 12 different streaming and podcasting outlets. And it's all because of you, and we truly appreciate it. So for Josh Pederson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network, your station for all things geek, classic, current, and beyond. Be part of the crew at ESONetwork.com.
Tangent Bound Network. Let your voice be heard. TangentBoundNetwork.com.
Thanks so much for downloading the Pop Culture Cosmos as a special treat. We're adding a bonus episode, which starts right now. So sit back and relax as you enjoy more awesome goodness from the Pop Culture Cosmos family, and stay tuned as more great podcasts are on the way. Thanks again for listening to us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.
We are back with another part of Topicocalypse, where 4 sometimes more idiots sit around a table and discuss topics we may or may not know anything about, but still decide to talk about anyways, because why not? And, I just threw my topic out there, and Daniel's still throwing up. Wait, Eddie just did something. I think he's ready.
Did you remember your topic?
I
remember my topic.
Eddie blanked out for a second.
Oh, so
we got to catch him before this loses. Okay. All right, go for it.
So over the last few years, especially with the election, there's been so much crazy from all walks of life, whether you be Republican, Democrat, Independent, blah, 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 about fake news. Will there ever come a time where it becomes, I guess, like a state-run media where it's not necessarily censored, but it's fact-checked in a sense?
So like Russia?
Yeah, almost like Russia. Well, like, it's crazy. So, you open CNN, and of course they're, towards a certain political agenda. And then you open Fox News, and it's paused.
Brink here from Super BS, talking about the things you know you love and the things you'd love to know. Join us weekly for a podcast about video games. Mostly. Oh, yeah.
I barely remembered my topic.
How I can remember. We just started towards one political direction.
So, anyways, yeah. So you have CNN one way, Fox News the other way. The Young Turks are, I think, going left. When does it become, because obviously journalists don't care. They just care about getting the story first. Will we, as a society, ever come to the point where things have to be fact checked before it's put on the air, or say there's like a fine or something?
No, because it's sad because people want to make headlines that will make people click on it. So it's all clickbait. It's all clickbait or something that they'll say like today on the news, and they'll tell you about their day stories, and they'll leave like the most interesting one for last, which is probably going to be a lie or whatever. But that's just it's a rating thing. Like networks actually encourage this stuff. These practices.
Well, it's on the news. The news says, "Hey, crazy story, whatever," and it's 2 minutes at the end of the news, so they get you to watch the hour-long programming to listen to some BS story.
Well, they got to justify charging what they charge for their advertising to Sprint and Nextel.
Yeah,
shout out Nextel.
Yeah, if you want to sponsor the Topicocalypse podcast, we are open to sponsorship. Thank you.
Thank you, Retro City Games.
Yeah. Retro City Games.
In Henderson, Nevada. 5 miles off the street.
Yes.
We won't screw you like GameStop.
Hey, GameStop is actually staying alive.
Shout out GameStop.
Staying alive.
We will take
Staying
your ducats
alive.
too.
They're becoming like Hot Topic, and I guess it's working out for them.
Okay, Hot Topic has bullet clubs.
But if like today, I opened my Facebook, and over the last couple of days, with all the riots going on and so on and so forth, the story keeps like changing and evolving, and it's like, well, what do you really believe? It went from it was a white supremacist KKK march, and then it turns out supposedly one of the organizers was a former Obama supporter / Occupy organizer.
Occupy Wall Street.
Right.
Yes.
So, as the story continues, what are we supposed to believe now? Because it's changed so many times. And not just this for instance, look at last year. Look at the Russian probes. When the facts do come out about the Russian probe from, the FBI, is it going to still be the people out there that don't accept them because the media is just totally bullshitting them this whole time?
Well, there is a little bit of bullshit, but I think that the culture of news and reporting on things of the world has already shifted to the point where it's not going to come back. That the news is all the different news agencies are competing to be the first to report something that they're not necessarily checking whether it's completely accurate or whatever, and then they go, we'll amend this story. I've looked on articles online on the news, and it's been edited 4 different times. We got this wrong, or we got this wrong.
No, it's a recent update instead.
Yeah.
So they just cover their own ass and say, oh, well, we just got more information. So, we reported, literally 2 minutes ago.
But I wonder how many lives it's destroyed.
A lot.
Doing it that way.
My degree's in journalism, so I majored in unemployment.
Why didn't you go for philanthropy, huh?
Yeah,
because they're
there's not enough money to be philanthropic.
Yeah, you can't be an entrepreneur if you can't afford it. But anyways, so all the textbooks I read, they always stressed how because they were written probably in the 80s, I imagine, and they always talk about how there's a time when the most important thing in journalism is etiquette, and you want to make sure you're checking your facts. You want to make sure that you're not defaming anybody because that can lead you into trouble. But now that's all the news is people either defaming somebody or just writing things that aren't true.
I was looking
at fact checked.
I was looking at that CNN. It's Van Jones, I think it is. Man, it's becoming like a soap opera on the news networks. They had 2 people crying on Fox News today.
We've got that with the president. We've got the U.S. is now a giant soap opera. In public,
opinion.
That's very true.
Yeah.
There's this article popped up today about West Point taking away the diplomas of Confederate soldiers. Did you guys see that?
I love
it. Yeah, now they can't get their football tickets.
All of the comments.
Wait, is this the Onion that you're?
No. Okay, it's called it's the Duffel blog or something. But all the comments on it were people just completely outraged or people celebrating, saying, "Ha, that's what Confederates get." But nobody was actually reading it because it was a joke blog. If they were to actually click on the article, they would see that it wasn't true, but instead all these people are reposting this and putting stuff on.
It goes back to what we were talking about on episode 1 of Topicocalypse, whatever you say it, about how people just read headlines, and that's where they're getting their news now. They're not even completely reading everything. They get just the headline. Oh yeah, it's got to be true. Well,
people like Josh.
Right, yeah, me.
I'm pretty sure Josh actually wrote that article just to get clickbait.
I did. It's all about the clicks,
we have to go ahead and let you go for being a racist.
But no,
he's a race baiter.
It is.
I'm a hate monger.
That's all, and that's what all the news really wants. I mean, a friend of mine was at a cigar bar or lounge or whatever down in Newport and wound up hanging out and talking to Dennis Rodman of all people.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Did he just get back from North Korea?
And they talked about all that stuff, but he's like, basically, if the news were to just stop spreading the hate and spreading, dissension and trying to separate the nation and just talk about other things, the whole, everything would go away. But instead, they want to put all this hate out there and push people to where they want to hate, so that way they have more news, which is what everyone's believed for a while. Is all they want to do is just put the negative out there, so they can separate everybody, so they have more news to talk about when the riots start.
Right, and a lot of people don't even know why they hate the things they claim to hate. Like I don't know if you guys saw the video of the dude standing in front of the Robert E. Lee statue with an AR-15 on his back, and everyone's
and he was dressed as a gray
screaming
man
at him. But he was the people who were sitting there yelling, like they didn't even sound. They sounded like a bunch of Valley girls. Like they didn't even know what.
I think they were just
arguing
trying to be
about.
popular.
Yeah. So how much of this like protesting and stuff is about relevance, and how much is actually about them feeling like that's something society needs to fix?
Well, it's changing big time, where freedom of speech isn't really supposed to be a thing anymore unless you believe what the masses believe.
Guys, this is going to be censored. We can't trust anything Eddie says when he brings up America and stuff. So,
well, a funny Facebook post I saw was it was like the New York Times or LA Times where they do their cartoon drawings, and it was like two different sides, and it was upcoming, what is it going to be, World War III or Civil War? And I don't think what a lot of people understand is things that are occurring right now, especially with the media intervention, could very well trigger something like that. In all seriousness, not being one of those conspiracy theories, but think about this: a lot of how many gun owners are there in America that will eventually take that serious step, that get tired of seeing national monuments ripped down? Not saying I agree or disagree with the teardowns, but eventually it's gonna trigger something.
That's interesting you say that, because I was thinking about this before. Like, that whole idea of without superheroes, would there be supervillains, or vice versa?
Yeah.
So do you think that, because we have groups like, we have the alt-right, what do they call themselves? Neo-Nazis or whatever they are? And
Antifa.
Yeah, we have Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Do you think that these groups would exist if the other side didn't have a similar type of group?
Well, you can't have good without evil.
Because I know that the alt-right came about because Black Lives Matter, and then Antifa came about because of the alt-right, and now we have all these smaller groups popping up because of Antifa. So
you didn't know alt-right is just the Klan. It's kind of their new name. The Klan's been around forever.
No one's ever specific about exactly what the alt-right is, but it's
an ambiguous term to encompass
the neo-Nazis, extremism,
right-wing political beliefs. So that's what I gather from what I was reading about the protest was. They were like, hey, we now have a label that unifies all of us. So now we're all under one banner. It's like, oh, great, thanks a lot, news. You just gave all these guys one banner and name to unite under, and it's like, great. Now we took a bunch of little problems and made it one big huge problem.
And one hell of a soapbox too.
Yeah, and so also, do you think that social media helps, like, enlarge these problems, amplify them?
Like Daniel said, you get these people that don't read a news article; they just read a thing and then they share it on their Facebook, and their friends are probably just as ignorant, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
And then on the flip side, there, granted, I have a bunch of friends that none of them are neo-Nazis, but like anything that's news related, they question, and they'll bring up really good points. But then there's ones that are like they actually do the research, and then there's the ones that are like, oh, I'm just going to share everything because I just don't agree. It's all so and so's fault, and anything that's against so and so, this group or whatever, I'm just going to post it anyways. And
it's crazy. It's like a couple years ago, if you would have been questioning the news, saying, "Oh, no, it's possible they're wrong, or they're just trying to incite violence," you'd have been considered a conspiracy theorist, and you would have been crazy.
Yep.
But it's like now that's normal to say. That's a scary thing. That's because a scary world.
Conspiracies are real now. It's one of those things.
Well, the scary thing is
conspiracy. It's just fact.
Yeah, it's like as social media and technology evolves, we're seeing more and more as far as what our governments around the world are doing. I mean, is there really anything you can hide anymore nowadays?
It's also kind of, the one thing that I've always, with all these, police brutality videos and stuff like that, it's like, it's nothing new to have bad cops across the country. I mean, there's bad cops. There's bad people in every single walk of any career path. But the main thing that is fueling the fire now is social media. Is everyone putting stuff out there? Because I'm sure there was cops beating people left and right back in the day before everyone had a camera phone and wanted to record it instead of getting in there and actually doing something about it. And it's also like when you have people up in North Hollywood this weekend, this lady's getting sexually assaulted and people are just walking by or videoing it and just walking
filming
by.
It. Did you see that video of the lady hanging outside of her employer's building? And instead of going to help them, they're just sitting there filming it. Like, she had accidentally fallen out the window, and she's kind of hanging on for her life.
Well, because you have to be the first to post that.
Oh, it's so
oh my gosh, look what I saw.
Just like the news media.
We want relevance.
If it's first, if it bleeds, it leads. And,
yeah.
The whole mentality behind it.
We want relevance at the cost of people's well-being.
But I think there's if you go back even deeper and further, I think part of it is that everyone's become so entrenched in their viewpoint that they don't know or understand those that have countering viewpoints to theirs. They don't care to at least dialogue with them and at least understand what makes these people tick. They just immediately vilify them, and so then it just becomes a shouting match. Shouts louder, who shouts louder, who shouts louder.
And then you win the argument by telling
no
them to F off or you punch them. And I won. No, you're just ignorant.
That's how you know you lost the moment you start throwing out.
But in your head, you don't tell yourself you lost.
Yeah.
You keep it going.
You get so passionate about it, and then it ends up with situations where, like the guy who ran over the people with a Challenger, it's really sad. But all right, hey, in case you didn't know, you can catch the podcast on podcast.com, YouTube, Facebook, and all podcast outlets across the globe. iTunes also. That's probably the most important one.
Subscribe and give us a
review, because we are a relatively new podcast and reviews are the currency of the realm for podcasters. And you can listen to it broken up in pieces or as a whole once all four pieces are posted. As a whole. That's a joke we made last week too. Anyways, we'll be right back.
If you're tired of sifting through flea markets for rare and unique games, we can help. Retro City Games in Henderson, Nevada, only 5 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip, has all your favorite gaming staples, classics, and a wide selection of rare games with new stuff always appearing on our shelves. Come in and chat with Nicole or Doug about your love of games and watch as they help you complete your collection or find your childhood favorite. And don't forget, Retro City Games loves trade-ins. So if you have any Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, Xbox, PlayStation, or even PC games, come in and visit Retro City Games today. Welcome to the new metropolis of gaming, Retro City Games.
That to us people that can feel things, it hurts.